Like I mentioned, all these webinars that I'm doing today, they're going to be recorded and uploaded. I will let you guys know by end of business Monday where you can find them so you can use them as review, or maybe anybody else that might have missed the webinar as well can join in as well and take a look. So what I'm going to do first is, if you see my screen now, I'm going to open it up. And what I have here, again, is another tax return that has pretty much been finished. I put the W-2 information, generic information. Now it's time for me to go down to this bottom area here, and I need to ask the questions to the client regarding their healthcare coverage. So the first one is, A, did they receive healthcare coverage through employer for the entire year? If that is the choice, or if that is the correct answer, then you're going to select the X on A, because that person has healthcare coverage either through their company, their provider, or someone is helping them with the healthcare coverage, where the employer pays a portion of it. If that's not the case, and the person mentions to you that they have maybe some kind of Medicaid, Medicare, or maybe some kind of governmental healthcare coverage, for example, like TRICARE, you can select the X here under B, and then that person will be covered for the healthcare coverage under that area. The next one here says, purchase private health insurance not through the marketplace for the entire year. So if that's the case, that means that the person bought the healthcare coverage and they actually are paying it out of pocket, and they did not use the subsidy provided under the marketplace to actually buy or purchase healthcare coverage. If that's the case, then you'll select your X here under C, okay? I'm going to take that one off too. The next one is the one where it's purchased through the marketplace. In other words, they went to the marketplace, or what most people know it as Obamacare, and they received some kind of subsidy to help them provide for their healthcare coverage. Here you would have to select the X here, okay? And then you can press the Quest button. The minute I press Quest, it's going to take me to the ACA Questionnaire Market and Premium Tax Credit Subsidy Calculation. Now, I'm going to kind of minimize my screen a little bit, so I want you guys to take a look. I think most of you guys already know what this form looks like, but this 1095A is the form that is sent to the client once they have received healthcare coverage to the marketplace. You notice it mentions 1095A. It's going to mention also the tax year that you're in. So obviously, one for this year, we'll look at 2016. It's going to mention the name, their marketplace member number, all these details about their personal information. Then it's going to tell you who was covered in the household, okay, which social, and it gives when the coverage started and when it ended. Then down here at the bottom on the household information, it's going to provide when the healthcare coverage started for that client. So this one in particular is looking at the month of March. If you notice here in the month of March, she started with $269. This was the premium, the low cost, and then here was the subsidy of the $251. So it calculates entering all the information in the entire column. The reason I know that the cover started in March because you don't see it covered in January and February, okay? So for this example, let's go ahead and enter this one in the form, okay? I'm going to leave this one here to the right over here. Oops, sorry, make it a little smaller here. And then under here, see if I can make this a little bit bigger. We have some choices on the ACA questionnaire. So they did purchase healthcare coverage to the marketplace. So you're going to select the X here, okay? Then you're going to go down to this area over here. Maybe I should make this part a little bit bigger for you guys. This area here, you're going to go directly to number 2. On number 2, it says check box and complete lines 2A through 2C. So you're going to complete lines A, B, and C. You would only choose option number 2 if on the 1095A, all the information was entered from January all the way to October. In this particular case, this 1095A starts in the month of March. So you cannot use option number 2. The only way to use option number 2 is if the entire year was covered from January all the way to December. And then what you could do is put the annual totals. The total on column A, which would be in this case $26.94, the total in column B, $30.98, and the total in column C for $25.10. So you would enter these last 3 numbers, these totals, you would enter it here in these boxes, okay? It says 1095A, line 33, column A, column B, and C. In this case, though, we can't do it because now all of them have been selected. So what we need to do is we need to go back over here, and we need to go down to this area here. Check this box only if the line 2 above did not apply to you, which line 2 on this part did not apply. So I will click on here and press on X, and then I would use the 1095A that the client is providing you, and you would start entering information as you see it on there. You notice you don't have to enter any of this part 1 or part 2 information. What matters is this part down here. So when we go down to March, I would just enter the information, which is 269.43. Okay, 269.43. Sorry, the last one, nope, the middle one, guys, actually pay attention, that's very important, sorry. The last one, the middle one is 309.81, okay? And then on that one, just the last one there is 251, okay? So normally what I like to do is I kind of take a look at the 1095A, and if I can see that all the numbers are the same, because sometimes these numbers do vary, and that is important in regards to the calculation of that refund for that client. If I see all the numbers are the same, then what I would do now is I don't need to look at this any longer. I'll just go on here and make the screen a little bigger so you guys can see it. And I would just go ahead and just enter this information. The same information you see on the top is what you will be entering, okay? No fast way to get this done, guys. It just has to be done one by one, okay? And again, I'm just entering the information from the client. Now also, as you guys know, there has been a lot of confusion with clients in regards to the 1095A. So if the person has not received it, or they think they received it, or they left it, or whatever the case might be, it is imperative that you enter the information on the 1095A. If you don't enter that information, that refund will be held for that client, okay? Last year we experienced this for the first time, where the IRS was being very adamant that if this information was not being entered, and it did not match the information that was at the marketplace, clients were receiving letters from the IRS saying that the 1095A either needed to be added or it needed to be corrected. So it really ensures, if you do this correctly, it ensures that you're only doing a tax return once. If you don't enter this information, or you don't bother to get the 1095A from the client, you're going to end up doing this tax return once, twice, maybe 3 times, depending on the situation that might be entered. Also, something to be aware of is that sometimes people do receive an additional 1095A, in other words, several 1095As. If that's the case as well, if you notice here where it says if multiple 1095As were received, go to worksheet. So you will click on here, go to worksheets, okay? The screen is going to pop up in front of you, and now this is basically another copy of this form that we just entered here. So you will go down and then enter an additional one here as well. If you notice, there's more boxes for you to enter. So be aware and be very cautious again when you're speaking to the client and making sure that they do have additional forms that you're asking them, and they're selecting that X on there, okay? The rest of this information does not need to be filled out. It'll be absolutely fine, okay? From here, it will determine to see if the person should receive maybe an advance payment, an overpayment, or if the person actually owes because of they received too much on the subsidy. And the way you would look to see that is if you go on the 1040, I'm going to show you here, I'm going to go down to the first one. The first one is going to mention, it's right under here, right here on 46. This one says excess advance premium tax credit repayment. And it shows here that this person actually is going to receive an additional $750 because they actually understated their income, okay? So it would show on this part here. Now, if it's the opposite, then you would go down here on this area. Let me see if I can find this one here. This one is going to show under net premium tax credit, okay? It would show on this one here. And actually, I apologize. This here would show actually if they overpaid it, okay? And they're actually going to receive some kind of an additional payment. So in other words, they enrolled in a coverage that they shouldn't have been paid for, or maybe they could have paid less. So this one will show under the credit area. And this top one here shows that actually they should have paid more for their healthcare coverage based off their income, okay? So this is where you can tell the client if it's actually going to actually impact them negatively or if it impacted them positively, because you're going to see the amount here under the, where did I see it again, under the credit part where you showed net premium tax credit. So actually will add to their refund on this part here, okay? So that's the way that you can tell the client to determine what that is. And this is also why we try to push also to make sure that the person that's creating or doing their application, that they should consult with a tax preparer, if you are the tax preparer, to make sure that that Obamacare application is processed correctly. We go to the next one here. I'm going to go back to client data. On the next one here, this is where we would assess a penalty. So let's say, and I'm going to go under here, and I'm going to take off the X here, okay? I'm going to press the X on this one here because the X here says at least one family member, including taxpayer, did not have health care coverage at any time during the year. This includes non-citizens and those undocumented and living in the United States. So here you would click on here on Quest. It will automatically take you to this questionnaire as well, okay? And under here, you would select X, meaning none of the above, okay? Because none of these are going to qualify at this time. If the person is a dependent of someone, then this X will be automatically calculated because that person is not responsible for the healthcare coverage, exactly the person that has them on that tax return. So this is for a dependent by another taxpayer, okay? If that's the case, the software will automatically place an X there for you. But here we're going to select the X here on the none the above. And then we need to go through question 2, 3, and number 4. So number 2 is asking, did you or a member of your tax household have a coverage exemption granted by the marketplace? So this is an example where someone applied for the marketplace. They were told they did not qualify for whatever reason. They didn't qualify the marketplace. And the marketplace, instead of sending them a 1095-A, they actually send them a letter that gives them some kind of exemption certificate number. They get an exemption so that way they won't get penalized for not having health care coverage. If this is the case and the client is providing you that documentation, then here you would select the X here under yes, so list the individuals to have a coverage exemption granted by the marketplace on the table below. And then you will go down here to this box area, name of the individual, you will click on choices, and let's select Joe Test, okay, which I think that's one of the dependents. And the next one here, we're also going to select test, okay, just some examples. And then on here, you would write the certificate number. Usually it is a list of letters, I think, with a number inside of it, okay? That's what I've seen in the past, but you would enter all the information that's on there, okay? And now this person will not be assessed a penalty for not having health care coverage, okay? So that's if they provide it, that's if something's provided by the marketplace. Now let's take this off and let's go by the example where someone's telling me, like, I did apply for the marketplace, but I found it too expensive, or I don't qualify because I don't qualify for Medicaid. They give you a list of reasons, right, of why they can't. Or sometimes you have folks that have an item, right? So folks that are undocumented, they're not eligible to receive the health care coverage, therefore they're not going to receive the penalty either. So then you would not select box number 2, you select box number 3. Did you or a member of your tax household have a coverage exemption to claim on this return? So you would click an X here under yes. I will go under here, name of individual, again, choices, so I can select the folks that are on the tax return. So we'll do Joe Test, and here we'll click on test. And then on here, under tax exemption, okay, you will go under here under choices, and on choices, there's a list of descriptions as to why that person is claiming that exemption to not receive the penalty. You notice the first one says unaffordable coverage, B, short coverage gap, citizens living abroad or certain non-citizens, not a U.S. citizen or undocumented living in the United States, healthcare sharing ministry, federally recognized Indian tribe members. So again, customers will know this. Your clients will know this information. They will understand. If they do not have a reason as to why they didn't get it, then that person has to pay the penalty for not having health care coverage, okay? But most clients do know that either it was unaffordable, or they'll tell you, I was, let's say, incarcerated, I was in jail, or they'll tell you, like, I tried to apply for Medicaid because I didn't apply for Obamacare and I didn't get it as well, because there are gaps in certain states where Medicaid coverage was not extended. So whatever the scenario is, you would choose this decision on here, okay? So let's say, for example, this one says unaffordable coverage, okay? So we would click the same for both, unaffordable coverage, for both the taxpayer and the dependent. And here you do have to select whether it's going to be the full year, or maybe if they didn't have health care coverage January through July, and then maybe in August, September to December, they did have it because they did apply at the marketplace, so they did get that. So you have to ask, was it all year or was it just a certain time period? So on here, let's just go select all year. So I'm going to click an X on here, an X on here, okay? So now this person is going to be exempt from having any kind of penalty because you're choosing one of these exemptions on here. So this is word of mouth, guys. This is the customer telling you this information. Up here, the person had some kind of certificate that came from the marketplace. I'm going to go ahead and take this one off, okay? And I'm going to take off Joe Test, and I'm going to take Test off here. Take all these things, I'll make it blank again. And then we're going to go down to this part here. So now this one's asking, did you or a member of your tax household not have minimum essential coverage at any time this year for which there is not coverage exemption to claim against? So in other words, the person doesn't have a reason why they didn't get, they didn't apply for Obamacare, or they didn't have health care coverage. Maybe they just don't want to. And sometimes some people do the calculation and they say, you know what, the penalty versus me paying the premiums every month is going to be better, and they're fine taking the penalty. If that's the case, and you will list it on here, okay, yes. So list individuals that do not have minimum coverage. So I will click on name. I will go on choices, and I will select Joe Test. And then again, the other individual, the dependent, okay? And then X here as well, and then here we'll click X here for the full year. We notice it's going to automatically populate the rest of the years on here, okay? So it is going to assess a penalty based off that person's income, okay? Now, to look at the penalty, you can go to the 1040. I'm going to click down to this area here, and let's find the penalty. It should be line 61, where it says healthcare individual responsibility. This default, and then you have to click here for full coverage as well. And this is the penalty for this person not having healthcare coverage for him and also the taxpayer. And also dependent. So remember, everybody that's on this person's tax return, on this person's test, everybody that's underneath them must have healthcare coverage. That is their responsibility. Now, a lot of these cases, guys, we do have where the dependent has healthcare coverage, maybe through Medicaid or Medicare or some kind of other coverage, and maybe it's just a taxpayer that has that. Those scenarios do occur, and they do occur frequently because most children are covered under some kind of medical coverage. So in that aspect, you would go back again to, I can go here under the ASA healthcare form, right up here, on the general test, and it'll take me right back to the screen. And let's take off Joe test. I think Joe was a dependent, right? So we'll take this off, and of course, you're going to have to go to each one of these and delete these if you made a mistake and you entered incorrectly. Let's go ahead and take that off, okay? Go back again, take it off. We'll go back to the 1040, and now, of course, when we look at 61 with the process of penalty, the penalty is less now. Now it's 695 because it doesn't include the dependent as well, okay? Now, again, there are scenarios. I'm going to go back here to the client data. There are scenarios where you have individuals that maybe, they don't have healthcare coverage, but the dependent does, right? So on here, on the form, the questionnaire, you do have to select an X here as well, because what you're saying is that the dependent Joe, he has it, but the taxpayer on the top part here, test, this individual does not have the healthcare coverage, okay? So there's several options that can be selected here. Maybe you have a list of dependents, 4 or 5, and a married couple, and some have insurance and some don't, or some have it through the healthcare provider and some have it through, some kind of government assistance. The point is on this area here that you can select various ones on here. So it doesn't have to just be just one. It can be various ones as well, okay? Also, in regards to the 1095B and the C, those are additional forms that get sent to the client from the employer and also from the Medicaid or Medicare department. Those forms are not to be entered here. There's no need to enter that information. It's a great idea to go ahead and get a copy of that information and make sure that you use your document archive and save that. That will show that the person had health care coverage, and you can save that, but there's no need to enter information at all in the software. What this is concerned about is only the 1095A, okay? That's what it matters, because that 1095A, remember, that subsidy was given based off an estimate that they're going to provide in regards to their income. And now when it comes to tax season, we're going to see if that information matches correctly, okay? And that's why sometimes you have an overpayment or sometimes you have an underpayment, and of course, you can also assess a penalty as well, okay? Thank you so much, guys. This concludes the webinar. Again, this will be recorded and we'll provide it to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much.